and Kufid Zayin Yeridea. Anyway, the Taz is the opinion that anything which is written clearly in the Torah that it's mutter, the Chazal don't have the right to come along and be machmer and asert. That's why he talks about why you do a bris milah on Shabbos. Why aren't you worried about Shema Yavirenu? You might walk around and carry the knife because the Torah clearly says and other things. So, to ask a question, we learned before in Hachayvul that a goat. The Chachamim made a gzeda. You're not allowed to have a behema daka. You're not allowed to raise a behema daka at Yisrael. They only give you a short window when it comes to a wedding or Yom Tov and so on and so forth. Oh, but you're not allowed to have a behema daka. You're not allowed to have goats. Then we learned a story about this person, this Amoida, that the doctor said the only therapy that he has is milk from a goat, and he had one, and he tied it down to his bed. He took all the and that Chachamim were very unhappy with him, and he said the only Aveda he ever did in his life, Aveda he did in his lifetime was he had a goat. So apart from the fact that the Torah says that Eretz Yisrael, no, Bava Kama, in another year and a bit. I'll tell you afterwards. It's that member. You look it up. Sorry. Okay, I might be wrong. Maybe starts member. Anyway, so the Gemara says. The pasuk says edit zovas cholvash, the land flowing with milk, and Rashi says it's milk of a goat. But that's not really the problem. That's a medrash. The Gemara in Bechayda says, how do you know you're allowed to drink milk? Isn't it cholav menachai? Eva menachai is forbidden. And the Gemara says you learn it out from it says edit zovas cholav advash. So you learn out halacha from here that milk is mutter, and milk we're talking about the milk of a goat. So how in the world can they come along and say that it's us? And you not have a behemoth daka raising Eretz Yisrael. When the whole Torah is I guess is complimenting Eretz Yisrael that it produces this milk, and we learn halacha from it, which means it's as if the Torah clearly says mutter. So that's a question asked.
There's no behemoth daka.
Oh, that we learned for Yom Tov. You could bring. If you have a 30-day window, you can bring it in. That they import. Yeah, no problem. Imported. Actually, in Sefer Todah, he brings a historian, a Greek historian, who said he went to Pesach and he saw how many pairs of kidneys. Yeah, we had more also. The kidney, yeah, that's right. But he brings a story that he counted. Yeah, that's right. So I knew 2 million. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, getting back here. Truth of the matter is, in the Gemara Ksubis, at the end of the Gemara Ksubis, we learned. The Gemara says that Eretz Zovas Cholvash does not mean milk at all. It does not mean honey. Remember, the very end of Gemara Ksubas, there it says that milk means that all the fruits that are produced in Israel are fatty like milk. In fact, it's a machlekes to Gemaras. If you take the pasuk literally, you mean milk, or you don't take the pasuk literally. And therefore, depending on which Gemara you follow, if you take the Gemara Ksubas, then it's not a kasha on the Taz. But all those who argue with the Taz, and that poskim who disagree, and they say Mefeish Chacham do have a right, even though the Torah says it's mutter, they have a good reason, they have a right to add an iser. We'll learn that the Gemara B'chaydas that it's takim mefurish, you're allowed to have milk, but so what? The Chacham still can come along and place iser. But so according to Taz, they cannot. It's no different. In fact, the bigger Gzeda to do an Issa Deraisa. Here, well, they're going to go and ruin the topography of Yisrael. Maybe they'll go to someone else's field and steal. And here's Chil Shabbos. Anyway, that's how you can explain it. So let's go back to the Gemara. We're learning. Abaye said there's a shitta, a number of opinions that do not believe that Shini is kain. We had Beis Shammai, and put on. We had Beis Shammai, we had Rav Shimon Yehuda. Says the Gemara. About 7 lines at the top of the page. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov as well. Where do you see he doesn't believe Shin is kaina? The time let the Brayso. How they should go as social chitin. You stole a measure of wheat, and then you made a shinit. Tachna, you grounded, lusha, you kneaded it, but you baked it. So you made 3 shinuyim here, 3 major changes. So it's radically different than what the original thing was. And then they have challah. You're from Yid, so you gave challah from it. You gave, and then Kates Mevorach. Well, how can we allow you to make a bracha? Ein zeh mevorach elemenai. It's not a bracha. You're antagonizing the Eibishter. in a way, like you're mocking, because you told me not to steal, and here I go, I'm a from you, then I'm going to make a bracha. Well, then it says, but say if you steal beirach, you make a bracha, niyetz Hashem, you're antagonizing the Eibishter. Now, so what do you see from here? If Shini is koine, it's mine. Why can't I make a bracha? Is that that Shini is not koine? Next. Now that's a problem because we learned a number of times. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Mishnose Kavanaki. He doesn't have too many opinions, but when he has an opinion, his Mishnah is pure and clean, and we always rule like him, which would mean that L'chayda Shini is not koine. We'll soon see. Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar, what's his opinion? The time we learn, Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar gives this rule: Kol shevach shehishbiach gazan. Any improvement that the gazan made on the stolen item, yoda alel yon. He reaps the benefits. Rotza, if he wants, neitel shvach. If he wants, he can keep that benefit of the stolen item.
But of the whole thing, or only of
the benefit, the improvement. Rotza, and if he wants, now saying if he wants, when would he say take it back the way it is? If there's an improvement, what would he give it back? Obviously, he's talking about there's a deterioration. For example, I stole whiskey right before Pesach. Now after Pesach, here's a bottle of whiskey. Now it's worthless because it's chametz over the Pesach. I can say so the two parts are incompatible. First, you're talking about improvement, then you're talking about deterioration. My karma, what's going on here? This is how you're supposed to read it. A few words are missing. Here's bicha, if it improved in value, noitel shvach, the ganav can keep it, and we'll talk more about the shvach in the next few days. But if it was deteriorated, I'm going to say, here, this is your item. Why? Because the shina b'mekayim it changed. Shina is not it's not considered a shina. Shina is not koiner. The mekayim still the original item. So if you tell me she's not koiner, so why in the world can the ganav keep the improvements? It still belongs to the nignav's item that improved. We'll see in the Gemara soon. We made a special takana to encourage the criminals to reform. What Rahman is on the victim. The idea is we don't want more victims. If we cause this person to reform, there won't be any more victims. And sometimes we need to put people, sacrifice one person on behalf of the whole community. We had this, by Sukkah, for example, in Gittin, if you put a beam already in the roof, we're not going to force you to dismantle the entire house and give the beam back. We'll say, just give them money. Takanas Modish. Rabbi Shmuel, Mahi, Bava Kama. Rabbi Shmuel, Mahi, what's Rabbi Shmuel? The time we learn, mitzvahs pay, the mitzvah pay is lahafish benakama. The mitzvah pay is, while the crop is standing, while those stalks are standing, is you should leave a corner of the field for the poor people. Lo hifrish benakama. You didn't listen, you defied the Torah. So according to Rabbi Kol Mada Amar Rachman Lo Sabid, whatever the Torah don't do, Avid Le Mahain doesn't help. So you still have a chiv of payer. So you still did an Aveda, even though it's still considered the corner. But according to Abaya, we have an extra pasuk tazav, to tell you that you have to leave it for the poor people, regardless of what stage it is. So why did Mafin according to Abaya of it Mahani help? So I didn't listen to it, and the story. There's no corner anymore. No, we have an extra pasuk says twice the word tazav, leave it for the poor people. Tell you that even if you did not defied us, in this case you have to the payer that moves on. The next stage. Okay, you made oimer out of it, you made sheaves out of it, give it to the poor people, even though it's in sheaves. Let's say you didn't separate at that stage, then you piled it up at that stage. You didn't smooth it out. Merchu, then you chayv a give meiser, and then you still have to give. It moves on from stage to stage. Even if you made a dough, now the dough is mamash ashini. Here you just cut it, but here you mamash made a shini. You transformed it from a wheat to dough. Yet the noisela you have to give. So that he holds shini is not kind of. Oh, the Papa Abaye, ich will call Hani Tanoy Lashmini B'Shamai. All they don't have to say we hold the B'Shamai. A little bit hard to understand. Quotation told before, whenever it's a shita, each one is varying a little bit. It's not exactly the same. So what's Papa's question? Papa's question is, even though they're varying it a bit, and then Allah is not like B'Shamai, so why bother varying it? Allah is not like that anyway. What he was saying was, what Abaye is trying to say is, who told us that they're arguing is Gurion from the city of Aspaidik? I'm telling you, they're not arguing. All of these times I'm saying Bisham is not arguing. I'm the one who holds that Shin is not Kain. And maybe that's the halacha. We hold that everyone agrees Shin is not Kain. I just agree with all of this. Dilma, I'll explain each one in a way that has nothing to do with Shin not being Kain. Let's go one by one. Ad can like come Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Hasa. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda says that if you dye the wool, you still chayiv. You still aggregate. You still do the aggregate, right? You combine the wool from all the 5 sheep and you give it to the kohen. You dyed it. Shini is not kohen. I'll tell you why. Hasa betzeva only by dye. Hoil the yachal avido alidei tzava. Really, shini is kohen, but dye is not a shini because it's reversible. You can put in those chemicals and remove it. No dye from there. I Beshama is still arguing about the harlot. If you give her a present, you turn it into dough. I can't let Beshama Hasam. You know, my Beshama says over there that that shin is not kohen if you turn it into dough. It's still forbidden to put on his beach. Ela ligvoya mishadimis. Hakrivei you know the v'fachasach. Hayitzim loy. You give this to an officer, will be happy. No, it's a passage. When it comes to a mitzvah, we're much stricter than the normal halacha, and we say it's passage. Ligvoya for a head it's all right, but not for gvoya. So using that same logic, but really shini is kind of by the case of the dough. You stole the wheat, you made the dough. But a bracha, to thank the Eibishter, that sounds like you're mocking. Eliyah bracha. The problem is only the bracha. Should have a mitzvah hababa veda. It's a mitzvah hababa veda. It's like a mitzvah hababa veda. Because if you were kind already, then it's no longer a mitzvah hababa veda. And then, so it's like a mitzvah hababa veda. Or in this case, the mitzvah veda happened at the same time. When were you koine? When you change it to dough. And when's the chiyuv challah come? When you made it dough, you have your chiyuv challah now. So the mitzvah and aveda sort of came at the same time in tandem. So it's a mitzvah. Aveda happened first, and after you did a mitzvah, then it's not called a mitzvah habba aveda. That kind of comes from Shimon Lazar. Why does Shimon say that? Shimon says that the Ganef can say Harei Shalachala Fanecha, take it back because she's not going to Ela Ba'achasha the Hada. We're talking about that. Let's say it was diminished in value, it became very lean. You know why? You didn't feed it properly. But tomorrow, if you start feeding it again, pumping up the animal, it will go right back to the original state. So it's not a real shini. And that's why the Bazanyaka says, that's why he said that's why Shimon Lazar says that you can say Harei Shalachala Fanecha. By payer, only by payer does he say that shini is not kind of that. Even if you converted it to dough, you still the poor people are entitled. You know why? Tazav, he said he goes a step further. It says Tazav, he said I'm going to go all the way. As long as you still have something that originated from this corner of the field, you still have to give it to the poor, even if you change it to dough. So once you establish by payer, there's no shini. Let's learn everywhere else that shini is not koine because okay, he told me that Tazav you say that, but why don't we learn like a binyan out? Matnoisanim shiny. Poor gifts to the poor are very different. I'll prove it to you. Boy, Rabbi Enes asked a question. Boy, Rabbi Enes, my time with Rabbi Shmuel. What's the swat of Rabbi Shmuel that the poor can collect even once it's a stage of dough? If you didn't leave the corner, you went ahead and you process it. Now you turn it to dough. The poor are entitled to take from that. What's the swat? Is it mishun de kasava shina in a koine? Is it because the other shina doesn't work, so it still belongs to the poor? Is that the word? Really, she is koine. The hach is an exception mishum tiksiv tazav yiseda because it says an extra tazav, so therefore it's an exception. The im timtzalei time Rabbi Shimon koine. If you're going to argue and say that Rabbi Shimon generally holds shini is not koine, so what do you need an extra pasuk tazav? Shini is not koine. Of course, you got to give payer. Tazav you say that the Koramah. Why does it say an extra tazav? Number one. Number two, visu the rabbanon. They hold that the poor people are no longer entitled to take from the dough. So what do they do with the additional tazav? Tazav you say Koramah. So we say you need look at Tanya like we learned it. Hamafkir, karma, if somebody, let's say, makes his own vineyard hefker. Now, then when you make something hefker, if you get something hefker, you don't have to give ma'aser true and all that. You made something because the poor person can take from it just like you can take from it. So you only have to give something that the poor person not shaykh to, and you got to give him. But if the poor person is shaykh to it, you don't have to give all these extra things. Hamafkir, karma, he made it kerem hefker. The huge skin labak. He woke in the morning. Nobody took it. So you started cutting it. So in other words, you decided to be cutting it back. Chayiv, you're chayiv, now even though hefker generally is part from all of those things, but it says artzacha, your land. This wasn't your land, it was hefker. You're chayiv because each one of these payments to poor, in peret, oile, shikha, or pay all of these things which you're supposed to give to the poor. If you forgot something, you fell down, all that. All of them says an extra word tazav. An extra tazav will tell you that even though technically you don't have to do it because hefker, you still have. If it was your fill initially, hefker, you got it now. You have to give it to the poor. The extra tazav. But one thing you still potter. But the potter meiser, you are potter from meiser. You are potter from meiser. Why? Because there's no extra tazav there. So we see from it, but where there's a written extra tazav, you learn how to halacha, and where there's no written extra tazav, you don't say, "Oh, let's compare it to the rest." The other chiyum, you don't. Same thing here. Even though we see over here that shini is not koina, and you turned it into dough, you have to give it to the poor. You cannot compare anything else to here because matnes anim is different. That extra pasuk tazav makes it unique. Halacha kerab shimon lazar. Who the name is Shmuel? Halacha like Shimon lazar. Says the Gemara that what? That the shini l'chayda sound like it's not koina. Did Shmuel say that? We learned that Shmuel said, "Ain't shamin." If a person ganves from somebody and then he has to return the item, and the animal died, you can't say, "Well, the animal was worth $100 now the animal has a carcass over 25. I'll give you the carcass and I'll supplement you with $75." No, the difference between the two. Ain't shamin. We don't assess the value of this carcass and say that the nigel is forced to take it back, and has to sell it if he wants to convert it into money or whatever it is. We're not going to help them out, not at all. Elo nezikin, but nezikin we will shamin. And what happens? So let's say you get guy damaged animal. The animal's worth 100 now; it's worth 25. The mazik only has to pay $75, but not the ganef and not the gazim. Now, what happened? The ganef keeps the carcass and pays the full $100. So what do we see from there? That shini is kinda that the ganef keeps the carcass. Why? Because it's not the original animal that he stole, and he pays the entire $100. So we see from here clearly that shini is koina, and you tell me he passes it that Allah Shimon Lazar where Abayi said shini is not koina. Says the Gemara. The Gemara says, even though Rabbi gave Papa gave another way of looking at it and saying that it's a shini, Sorry, Rabbi gave another way of looking at it. That really shini is kind of, but over here it's talking about he weakened the animal. It's a shini ha'chayzel l'b'riyasai. But the Gemara is continuing in the original Abayi's form, which is that he holds pasha shini is not kind of. So how could it be the short passing? Like, even we could have answered, he holds like a Rabbi that he's not. The Gemara says, but then he wouldn't be passing because everyone agrees. A shini ha'chayzel. Remember Rabashi said before yesterday that a shini ha'chayzel l'b'riyasai, reversible shini, is not a shini. I don't need to pass like Shimon Lazar. The Gemara says, but then you have to wonder why do you have to say the Allah Shimon Lazar. But still a bit shver. And there's Thomas Zikin about Chosh and they were talking about an irreversible shini. So obviously that's a prop shini. According to Baya, the Amar says, but according to Baya that says if Pashan holds the shini is not koine, ma'yikal if he holds the shini is not koine, what are you ma'yikal then? He holds shini is koine. Shmuel personally, how can he say Allah Hashem laws like a Baya that shini is not koine when he's pasking that shamin that ain't shamin leganav legazim, they get to keep the carcass. Why do they get to keep the carcass? It's an example because shini is koine. They changed it. What's going on here? And what is up? Abaya's version of Rabbi was a little bit different. They say halacha kenab shimon lazar that shini that shini is not koine, but I don't hold that. I hold that shini is koine. That a gzela that changed, as long as the animal is still alive, you return the animal itself. Even though the animal changed, nevertheless, if it's still around, you give the animal back itself. Because he holds shini not kind of. Okay, so so now we learned the consensus is, except those few Tanaim, according to Bai's version, according to Rabbi, there are no Tanaim, that shini is kind of. But Rabbi Yechanan says shini is not kind of. That Vatoida, Minatoida. Zela Hanishtan is Chazedas being Hatoida, you have to return it, Shanema, the Heshes there, Shagoza, Mekom Mokum. I've been telling Mishnah saying this is clear in our Mishnah. That if you do the Shinui, right? They got pregnant and they gave birth. That we call it. You pay back money and you don't have to give back the thing itself. He holds that shini is kind of only midrabanan. We want to encourage the Ganavan to do tshuva. So therefore we say shini kind matayla, it's not kind. Says the Gemara. So let me ask you a question. You're telling me that shini is only midrabanan kind of shavim. That means matayla it's never kind. So explain to me this thing here about the Reishis Hagez. There's no ganeva there whatsoever, because remember we said there's no particular. It doesn't belong to any coin yet. It doesn't belong to any coin yet because you didn't say you didn't give it to a coin. It's just a chiv that you have. And the chiv didn't even start yet. And halachic is Mishnah. Rabbi Yechon has a rule, and we quote this numerous times, that the halachic is like a stam Mishnah. But now we learned the stam Mishnah. What happens like his speak litnei law? You didn't, wait till you saw the wool of all 5 goats, or sheep. You as soon as you saw the first one, you went ahead and tzava and you dyed it potter. You are potter. The way we learned is the way Rashi learned. Tosfos Nasamav learns is talking about even after all 5 sheep or goats were shorn. So now you already had a chiyuv to give. But if you go ahead and you made a shina, you dyed it, you are potter. Just like in the case of payah, says Tosfos. Over there was a chiyuv already because of the corner. As soon as it grew, there's a chiyuv of payah. And yet when you cut it down, you made a shina, you turned it to you made a shina, it's kindness. So we see even after the chiyuv, if you make a shina, it's no longer the original item. So what are you going to collect? So the same thing over here, says Tosfos. We're talking about here even after you did all 5 goats. And the difference is as follows. If you did it 1 goat at a time, even if you only, let's say, dyed half the wool, if the aggregate of all the 5 don't equal the amount that you have to put it, you're not chayv. Here, once it's chayv, you must dye the entire lot of wool. Any wool that you didn't dye, no matter how minuscule, how small the amount is, you still have to give it a kohen because there's a chiv already on it. But bottom line is, we see clearly from here that if you dyed it, you're potter. It must be mahatreda. Can't be midrabanan takonas hashavim. It must be mahatreda. Yeah. What can you go shavim here? Amalu, Ahom Rabban Rabbi Akish. This rabbi said his name is Rabbi Akish. Ledim Fashim and Rabbi Yechon. I know so Rabbi Yechon. Kegoin. He's talking about a case. She goes al otzim eitzim mishufin. You stole wood. Where it's a weak shinu. Why? You stole polished wood, but us and kalim, and you made it a keli. The havale shina chayzel b'yasik. You can always unravel it. You can always take it apart. You took polished wood or they want, and you put it together, and you made a basket out of it. So all you do is undo it. So it's a shina chayzel. And then Rav Yechon is saying that a shina chayzel matayid is not a valid shini. Dye. We're talking about a dye which is not maybe he's talking about here a dye that's not shini chayzel. We're talking about a shini. We're talking about a shini chayzel matayid is not a shini. But I hold with Rabbanan like a baya that even shini chayzel is a shini to encourage people to do tshuva. You don't do tshuva. The Gemara. What we learned? Hagazlon. This is a pelvic Gemara. A gazlan. Somebody steals. Malde beribis. Somebody lends with interest. These are all isurim in the Torah. Shehechziri. The guy is contrite, filled with remorse, and he wants to do tshuva. So he takes the interest and he wants to give it back to the borrower. So here, take back your money. The din is, ein mekabel. The borrower is now to take it back. The gazla, the nigzel is now to take back the stolen goods. But mekabel, if you take it back, ein ruach chachamim neichemen. I don't approve. What possible logic is there in that? We'll see in a minute. Where did we find such a basis? This was said in the time of Rebbe because a story happened. Based on this story, time we learned. There's an incident of the person. Shabik last tshuva. He was contrite and he wanted to return the stolen item. His ishtareka. We'll say he's pushed away. If you do tshuva, we got nothing left. We're paupers. I feel like even your gartel is not yours. So he was convinced by his wife, persuaded by his wife not to do tshuva. His boys at that time, the Rebbe came out. If they want to do tshuva, reform, ain't mekabli mehem. We don't take it back to make it easy to tshuva. Now mekabel mehem ain't ruach hacham nechem. Like Gemara can ask a few questions. I'll explain you to me what's going on because this is the most difficult Gemara. The victim never goes, "Could you want to do tshuva? Have to suffer." Isn't usually the part of tshuva is to return the lost item? Isn't that one of the signs that you're doing tshuva? That you actually mean it's like crocodile tears? What does it even mean? We'll see. I'll come back to you. I'll tell you what the Rishonim say. Let's first do the Gemara Sakvataya. Makes. Oh, but if you learn the Gemara Talidal, but let's see what happened further. It gets even worse. Makes a question. We look in Ksubis. Niach lehem. Okay, this actually is an issue. If the father left them, the father died, he left behind money that he collected, interest, usury. Even though they know it's usury, they don't have to give it back. Why? It seems to me, it's not their obligation to return this money. Oh, but Avim, if he would have been alive, it sounds like you just said that you don't return it, and if he returns, you're not allowed to accept it. So it's clear the father should give it back. So the Gemara Bedin of him no. The father also doesn't give it back. So why talk about the children? If you say a bigger chiddush, so the father give back. Should the Kabbalah Mishnah tell you the safer? If he left behind, the father left behind a cow or a talus, a garment, the whole dover Muslim, anything which is people can relate back to, this is Yankel's cow, this is Yankel's coat. They should give it back, even though they don't have to. But every time person says, Yankel Daganov, or Yankel Daganov stole the coat, or Yankel, anything which people can see and it triggers a memory that this association with this person who died, that he's a Ganef, it's not covered to the father. So covered to the father, give it back to the guy, and end that story. So Tanarei Shana maybe to do. And so therefore the Reisha also talks about the children, even though that the children part and the father part as well. Says the Gemara after the question. They covered Avi. You tell me in the Sefer that they have the father's bull, they have to give it back. Cover the father. When do you say that you have to give someone that headed and someone covered if they behave like a Framid? But this father was a Ganer for Gazan. They don't have to mechabed him. If they don't have to mechabed him, we'll talk about another time. The whole machlek is if a mamzer, for example, has a mitzvah of kibbutz obeyim, because the father did not behave, or the mother did not behave. So and the father as well, his real father. So what happens in such a case? Another shayim. But we'll talk about that. Because this is not the sugi where it is. So we'll learn Nezeh Neshech. So what's pshat? So the Gemara Pinchas said he did tshuva, and did tshuva, also tshuva, he did tshuva. He did tshuva. That's why they're trying to do kibbutz reim. So if he did tshuva, he must have given back the money. So what do you mean the children, should they give them interest money about? He also tshuva, my boy gabei, he boy leila hadure. For example, the cow. Forget about the interest. If you tell me the children have to give the cow back, the father's cow, because it covered the father, but if the father and Russia, so you say the truth, he would have given the cow back already. So what's the talk about whether they have to return the cow or not? And the din is you have to cover the father. And the Gemara, he speak language and he did tshuva a minute before he died. People then do tshuva, even though it says the Shreim, I feel pischa gehenim in tshuva, but this guy did tshuva, but in his respect, he didn't have a chance to give it back. Okay. So no raya one way or another from here. The father also does not have to give back the usury money. Toshma coming here. Hagazlonim umal b'ribis, a gazlan and somebody lends in the ribis. Alpha pishagovu, even though they collected, machzirin. Says even though the malvi b'ribis collected the money, it seems to me that he does return it. And then it says, and the gazlonim also, if he collected, he returns it. Says the Gemara, gazlonim. What do you mean collected? My shigavu ika. What do you mean if he collected? What do you mean if he collected? Then he's not gazlan if he didn't collect it. What do you mean gazlan if he collected? If he stole it, he stole it. And if he didn't steal it, he didn't steal it. So what's shot? So why is he called a gazlan? El ema hagazlonin umayni umalvi. When we say gazlonin, we're talking about malvi. But how much gazlonin? This person Nebuch was vulnerable. He needed the money desperately. So you forced him to pay interest. He's like a gazlan. The only difference is that you got, you got the money legally in your hand because the guy gave it to you voluntarily, but it wasn't really because it's like blackmail. You want my money? You have to give me interest. So the din is, Afa Pisha Gavu says clearly here that even though he collected, Machzidin. You just said before that Malvidibis, I shouldn't return it, and if somebody accepts it, Menu says clearly in this Braisa here that Machzidin, that the Malvidibis have to return the money. How many says Gemara? Now this is the most difficult thing. Machzidin. But they have to go through the motions of giving it back, and the Makabel has to say no. Now, if this guy knows this halacha, it's so easy. But he's taking a risk. He's taking a risk. What happens if the guy, the Makabel says, I want my money. I need it. Remember, only Ein Ruach, the Chacham don't curse it. It just says Ein Ruach Chacham Neichemenu. They don't approve of this behavior. So therefore, if the Gazan goes and offers it back, he's taking a risk. Is that he is doing some kind of a trivia here? And yeah, exactly. That's so it's true. It's an expression we have in Mishnah. Yeah, very good. Yeah. So, so there's different ways of learning. If we have some Mishnah, it says "Einu Cham Noichem," and we have a few plans, Shabbos, and other places, what it means, whether it's you're not behaving properly or the Chacham don't approve of this kind of behavior. Bottom line is, you have to be Yaitzi Dei Shemayim to give it back. He should not be Makabel. Toshma coming here. Those who are shepherds and those who are gaboim who collect, taxes, or those who collect, the import duties and so on. Chuvasam kosher. They usually charge more in excess, and royim usually go in other people's pastures, and therefore their chuv is very difficult. How do you know who to return the stolen money to? And those that they know that they stole from, they have to return it to. And so, what does he clear from here? That you give back. That you these are ganovim. And says you said before that you shouldn't, to encourage that tshuva. You don't think it's fair to give back. Says the Gemara, "Amli machzin give back, but they ain't mekabel behem." So why, if you don't accept it, what do you mean give it back? Well, you should just charge your obligation to the Eibishter. It's so easy. Why is it difficult tshuva? It says in the end, the extra money you have, but you don't know who to return it to. So you should purchase things that benefit the entire community. Go ahead, do things that benefit everybody. So eventually, even the person, your victims, your real victims, will benefit from this. For example, she build all these wells and cisterns and caves around, so people have a drink, so that they all benefit from it. So what do you see from me clearly? That you have to give it back. When it says you have to give it back before the takana, you're gone, you got to return it. You can't return it because you don't know who. Build these public products that benefit everybody. But after the Rebbe came along to that story and said, "No, don't give it back. You don't give it back." We'll still come back. We'll come back to a minute. I'll still explain to you what the Rishonim say, because this whole Gemara is baffling. Now that Nachman said, Nachman said that it's talking about that when do we say that you cannot return it? Only if the stolen item is still in existence, then you give it back. It's his item or her item. If the stolen item is not in existence, I got to pay you money. Then we say, to encourage the Ganav to the tshuva, don't give it back. So therefore, we can now reconcile these two, the Brais and everything else. When we say give it back, if the gzela is still in existence, we say return the item. And but if the gzela is no longer available, don't give it back. Says the Gemara, what did the woman say to that man, that story? She said, well, Avneit, the gartel sounds like he stole the gartel, and you're telling me that even after the takana, he has to return the gartel. So what did they achieve the takana? The whole basis for the takana was because she made him said, give back all your clothing that you stole. And Rebbe said, okay, no, what to encourage, and he decided not to do tshuva, to encourage people to tshuva, make it easy for them not to have to give it back. But then you're telling me that the stolen item is still to give back. So what do you achieve? So Gemara says that when she said the gartel, she meant the value of the gartel because it was used stolen money. The executive, my avne, the value of the gartel, because everything here is stolen. You're telling me that if the gzela still exists, there's no takana, you got to give it back. So what about the modish, that beam that you place in the roof, the gzela kayam, so it's existing, and yet we say you don't have to return it. Goes if you stole it, that you can just take the money. So the answer for the takana sashavim shiny. They we want to encourage the tshuva. The key one, since the ika psika tzeda, the bida, because he's going to lose the entire house, is going to fall apart. Shavi rabbona kidless, as if it's non-existent. That's an exception for you. But here we still tell him to give back the money. You just said that takana shavim you don't pay. Ghana does not pay. In the case of the morish, the takana shavim we say, you know what? Don't bother about the beam, but pay money. So here we can answer because the beam is in existence, he has to return the beam. And that's even after takana, you turn the beam. And this is another takana, that since you have to return the beam, to make it easier, easy is enough to say pay money. How do we explain the Gemara? I mean, what is this? We learn everywhere else, and in order to do tshuva, you have to return the money, and it just didn't tell us all the time. You have a gazlan, and you bring back. I was just looking yesterday at in shul. I saw a sefer. It talks about life during the Holocaust, and it's a summary about everything that happened. It has a whole section on Din Torahs. During the Holocaust, he writes it was difficult to find but they didn't. But in the ghettos, there were Din Torahs about Gzelis, Genevas. People were stealing from each other because never they were desperate. Gzelis, Genevas, Halvas. People weren't paying back. Mashkoinas. No, not Mitzvah. I mean, I'm not kidding. No, not this is a separate sefer. I never saw it before. A biography a guy wrote, and he writes what the details are about. The only problem was it's hard to find the young. Can you imagine? What about Gzelis? So Gzelis is something that what's this here? So we have three different approaches here. Rabbeinu Tam says a fascinating thing, which the Chacham Tzvi has a whole discussion on. Rabbeinu Tam says it was only in the period of Rebbe, only in Rebbe's lifetime. And he says a follow. What's the chiddush of the Rabbeinu Tam? I'll just quote here. He says, only for 50 whatever years it was, and then it's gone. And that's why he says you'll only find the only questions we ask from are from Brises that was said in Rav Chia's life, who was a student of Rebbe, and everything Rav Chia wrote came from Rebbe. So these were Rebbe's Mishnayos. He says we don't bring other Mishnayos. There's so many other Mishnahs that says you do take it in Torah. You do. You know why? Because he says Rebbe didn't compose any Mishnayos. Says Tosfos Rabbeinu Tam. Mishnai, I'm quoting you Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam says right in the middle of Tosfos we made Rebbe. Lefi because Mishnai is hoyu koydem Rebbe. Elish Rebbe Sidram. Big chiddush. Rebbe did not compose the Mishnayos. Not like we learned that the Rambam writes in Hakdama or Rash. No, Rebbe did not compose the Mishnayos. The Mishnayos already composed before him. All he did was he put them into the Masechtas in the sequence of Mishnayos. That's all he did. But the Brises, the Brises is really what the Rebbe said. It's an amazing thing here. That the Brises is what the Rebbe said. If you want to know what Rebbe said, look at the Brises. Mishnayos, all Rebbe did was he put them together. So you can't. A lot of times you have a question: why would Rebbe bring a Mishnayos against his own opinion? It's because he didn't write it. The Chacham Tzvi has a truth. I didn't look it up this time, but it has a thing about this thing here. That's so. Then so Sefer Rabbeinu Tam says that's why we don't bring any Mishnayos. All the Mishnayos don't matter. It's only during his lifetime that we had this takana. Okay, everyone else disagrees, but they say as follows: two ways of learning. One way of learning is there's a difference if you schlep someone to court or if a guy does tshuva. In this story here, the guy on his own was filled with remorse. He wanted to do tshuva. We cannot put impediments in the way. If a guy wants to do tshuva, he's genuine. Then we encourage him. We say, no, you don't have to pay. Make sure it never happens again. If you do, then obviously you have to pay then as well. But if a person was taken to court and didn't tell you about Gzeila, of course he has to pay. No question about it. Oh, so that's one chiluk, whether the person does tshuva on their own or whether you drag him to court. Another chiluk others say is whether you're a career criminal or ad hoc. This guy was a career criminal. A career criminal, the only way to stop them is you have to really encourage them because they can't help themselves. So they so easily relapse. So therefore, we say, you know what? We're going to give you a chance to start again, start afresh. Like these prisoners, when they go out of jail, the problem is they have no nobody gives them a job. What's going to happen? They're going to go right back to their old thing. That's why they try to encourage people to hire, so on and so forth. But if it's a one-off thing, got to punish them to stop them from doing it again, because punishments will work. Somebody makes a career that's putting them in jail is not going to help them, not going to change them. You have to let them realize how good it is, or let them meet the criminals. There's a whole way of therapy where they actually meet the criminals and they can see the damage that they did, and that will what do you call it? In fact, that's why we say it's a mitzvah l'tzadei shemayim. So you're going to have to meet the criminal. You're going to have to meet the victim that you hurt, and then you'll see what kind of damage you did. Maybe then you'll realize and how bad it is. Interesting. Anyway, we'll stop here. See you tomorrow.